What is going wrong with Spurs?
It's a mixture of things, really. The fans are definitely becoming more aware of the ownership of the club and
Hmm.
how they are influencing our football. It's also coming down to Conte. He's playing some pretty, I wouldn't say boring football, but I'd say it's not uh, football that I take pleasure in watching
Hmm.
every week when I turn up to the games. It's just a huge combination of little pieces coming together to put us in the position where we are at the moment.
Hmm. Yeah, it's a mess, isn't it? And you mentioned Conte there. Last time you were on the channel, you said you were sure that Conte would sign a new contract with the club. Do you still feel that way?
As of 2 months ago, I think I said I was
Yeah.
99.9% certain. Now it's probably quite a bit less than that, to be honest. It's a 50-50 for me. I think it comes down to both the club and Conte being in positions of power. If the club are saying to him, look, we'll give you the money after you sign the contract, then Conte's not going to sign it because Conte's saying, if you give me money before the contract, then I'll sign it.
Yeah.
So everyone's waiting for each other to pull the trigger first. And if it's a battle of egos, then we know what Conte's like. He knows
Hmm.
he's a serial winner. He knows his value. So he could. It's a win-win situation for him. He either gets a big new contract or he's free to pursue other things he wants to do.
Yeah, and what's happened there then? Is it performances? Because we know there's been things that have gone on behind the scenes. His interviews have always been one that has puzzled many with his weird random outbursts at times when uh, there was that one interview where everyone still was sort of like Conte in, and he just sort of went, if I leave, I leave. And it was like, what? What's gone on? Because it just seems like something's just changed in the club and Conte's no longer happy.
Yeah, especially after games. You mentioned it there with his press conferences. When I get home after the game, I post a bit of like sort of quotations from him, and I read some of the stuff he says. You think, what is this guy talking about? I'd say 90% of the fans are Conte in every game. We're screaming his name, Antonio.
Hmm.
Um, I think he's now starting to expose the club, however, expose the owners for what they're really there for. Majority of Spurs fans, including myself, aren't happy with the ownership of the
No.
club, how it's run. It's more of a profit club than a glory club.
Hmm.
Um, but I think behind the scenes, he knows he's exposing the club, and by exposing the club, he's using it as a way to get what he wants. However, Daniel Levy is probably quoting probably every transfer person he's dealt with, like literally the worst person to negotiate with
Yeah.
and deal with. So it's a big clash of personalities there. So I don't know, it's just not working out at the moment.
No, and we'll stay on the manager front because, as you say, it's a 50-50 if Conte goes or stays. From an outsider looking in, I genuinely think he'll go. I've looked at it and I just think I
Mm,
can't see him signing a new deal. It's not like you, if you were second in the table pushing for the title, I'd go, the Spurs board would give everything to make sure he signs on. I don't know if
yeah.
they particularly want that because he's a tricky customer and we know the Spurs board are like yes men. So, if he were to go, who replaces him?
Um, I think there's only one answer here, to be honest, and it's Pochettino.
Okay.
Um, he's a fan favourite, and he has been even when he's not been at the club for the
Hmm.
past couple of years. Don't get me wrong, I'm still Conte, and I'll back the manager till the end until things start to massively fall apart. But Pochettino is probably the most realistic option. He and Daniel Levy have worked before. Daniel Levy loves him because he knows with Poch he will get his way.
Hmm.
He doesn't have to spend big money, and Poch pretty much just accepts that every time. We didn't
Yeah.
spend for I think 18 months and three transfer windows at one point, which Daniel Levy was probably rubbing his hands together, loving life.
Yeah.
And even then, we managed to get to the Champions League final. So
Hmm.
for Daniel Levy, he's going to go straight to Poch, I assume, and he's out of contract, so he's not going to cost him anything,
No.
and he's not going to demand a massive salary either.
No, and you look at the available managers, there's not really much out there apart from Poch's moment. Well, Potter could be on the market very soon, but obviously he's now done with Chelsea, so you can't then go and hire him. Oh, could you? Could you get Potter? Because you've hired ex-Chelsea managers before. I was going to say you can't hire them if they're ex-Chelsea, but you've done it with Jose, you've done it with Conte. So is Potter an option?
Ah, if he was out of contract or if he got the sack, possibly, because again, we've gone back to back with ex-Chelsea managers now with Jose and Conte. But Potter, I think, signed a 5-year deal or something ridiculous at Chelsea. So there is no way Levy will pay
No.
millions and millions to terminate his contract, even when he's not doing that well with Chelsea.
No, yeah, I don't. I think it would be a case of Bowley terminating the contract, to be honest, and then you lot possibly swooping in because you had that interest before, obviously, and we now was it after Nuno was sacked before Conte came in? Was it then that you were looking at Potter? Because obviously we all know about Nuno's incredible run with Spurs, which lasted like 3 months, 2 months, and you were the worst side I think I've ever seen in that period. We will move away from the managers though, because there's other things I want to discuss, and it does start with the board, and it starts with Paratici. I'm seeing his name everywhere. I'm seeing Paratici sort of, mentioned in all sorts of different formats, especially this sort of legal issue that's going on. What's going on with Paratici, and is he getting fired? Is he getting arrested?
Yeah, so there's a lot of reports out at the moment, especially in Italy, which is where the allegations started due to his time at Juventus when he was actually there with Conte for some of it, to do with making extra money or sort of avoiding taxes on transfer fees and transfers to the club and out of the club. So there was talks about a month or so ago that he was actually sort of requested to come back to Italy so they could conduct questioning and do an investigation, but nothing's come of that. So whether that's been swept under the rug, Tottenham have basically told the Italian police to hush down and we'll sort it out privately. But as far as I know, he's still in and around the club. I was at the last few games over the last few weeks, some of the friendlies, and he was sitting on the bench as normal. So for now, nothing's happening. Behind the scenes, he might be speaking to a load of people. I don't think there's been many talks of getting rid of him. I believe Daniel Levy would only get rid of him if it came down to tarnishing the club and making the club look bad. So for now, I think we're okay with him.
Okay, because I must say, I woke up one day and I saw a load of reports about all this going on, and I was like, what's going on here then? Because you see that in... Look, we all know that Juventus possibly aren't the best club when it comes to doing things by the rule book. They've been known to break the rules many times, and I looked at that and I thought this would not surprise me if something has gone on here. So it's one that I guess we'll have to wait and see. But if he were to go, how big of an impact would that have on the club? Because obviously he's doing the football side now, with Levy sort of stepping back and just focusing on the business side.
Yeah, so when he came in, our head of recruitment at the time, Steve Hitchen, he left pretty much straight away because he knew, look, Paratici's come in to essentially take my role. So he left straight away. So without Paratici, we'll be out with a head of recruitment. Now, our recruitment is not the best anyway.
No.
We've had the odd signing that's been good. So someone like Bentancur and Kulusevski are hands down one of the best signings in recent years. We've had a couple of youngsters as well. Papa Matsar's been playing recently. He looks quite good. Other youngsters like Spence that don't play
We'll get onto him later.
Yeah, whatsoever. But I do think he would be a big miss because I do think he was a big part that Conte came to the club in the first place. They were good mates, best friends at Juventus, worked together. So he probably sort of said to him, mate, look, come here, we'll do a job together. I'll be here with you every step of the way. And if Paratici does go, that could be another reason Conte says, look, I actually don't want to stay here when it gets to the end of the season.
Yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see, but no, it's an interesting one. And before we do sort of end off this segment, it's been a lot of Italian chat, and I want to finish this off with a positive. I know it's rare. Destiny Udogie, I don't quite know how to pronounce it, but I want to discuss this one here instead of the transfers, because obviously he is your player. He's currently loaned out. He actually looks really exciting. I've actually seen a little bit of him so far this season in Italy, and he looks really, really good. Is this a guy that's going to come in and sort of play for your first team next season? If Conte's still there, is he going to be Jed Spence point two? Or what's because he looks excellent. And look, also, if you're not going to play him, send him to Leicester and we'll happily have him.
Yeah, I think you need him, to be honest.
We do.
Yeah, so Udogie, we sent him back to Udinese, the club we brought him from. I think we signed him for about 20 mil, just under in the end. He was a Conte signing by the sounds of things, especially with Spence. Conte came out and said it was a club signing. With Udogie, he said, look, this was the player that I wanted. So I'm hoping when he does come back in the summer that he does get some good game time, because Sesson Young at the moment is not reaching the level I want him to, or fans want him to. and Perisic eventually will start to deteriorate because of his age. So I'm
Yeah.
hoping he can come in, get a couple of years with Perisic maybe under his belt, learn from him. He looks like a really exciting player. I did a post on him the other day. I think in 2022 he was statistically like the second best fullback in the top 5 leagues, which for a player of his age is
Yeah.
insane. So yeah, I'm really excited for him, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, as I say, I've looked at him. I've seen him a little bit throughout the season, and yeah, he looks top class. So that could be a positive amongst all of this Spurs negativity. What we will do is we'll take a short break there before we come back and discuss transfers. So let's do that.